Buenvenidos, and welcome back to the Sociology Experience. In this video, I want to talk about global stratification, worlds of development, theories, and poverty. Let's start with a definition of global stratification, which refers to patterns of social inequality in the world as a whole. Now, depending on how country is defined, there are between 193 and 197 independent nations on Earth. Here are some general statistics about those countries. About 54 countries are in Africa, 48 in Asia, 33 in Latin America and the Caribbean, 14 in Oceania, and 2 in North America. The largest countries by landmass are in order: Russia, followed by China, the US, Canada, and Brazil. The most populated countries in order start with China, followed by India, the US, Indonesia, and Pakistan. The richest and the poorest countries based on gross national income include: the most well-to-do starts with Norway, followed by the US, Sweden, Australia, and Canada. And the poorest countries are Kenya, Ethiopia, Mali, Guinea, and Niger. Niger being at the very bottom of the list. Social scientists have divided all of the countries in the world into what sometimes is called the 3 worlds of development. Those 3 worlds of development are called high income, middle income, and low income countries. Now, this terminology has changed over the years, so there are some synonymous terms that I'd like to mention. High-income countries have also been referred to as the most industrialized countries and also the most developed countries in the world. They have also been referred to as first world countries. Likewise, middle-income countries have been called the industrializing countries, the developing countries, and second world countries. And finally, low-income countries have also been referred to as the least industrialized, the least developed, and third world countries. So let's take a look at some of the characteristics of these 3 worlds of development. And on your screen, you can see that high-income countries developed during the Industrial Revolution about 2 centuries ago. High-income countries enjoy about 62% of the world's income. High-income countries control financial markets, which means control of other countries. It makes up about 79 countries globally, and they're about 28% of the world's population. Middle-income countries have about 54% of their population living in or near urban areas, and they have industrial jobs. About 46% live in rural areas. Most are poor and lack access to schools, medical care, and safe water. About 67 countries make up the middle-income category. About 59% of the Earth's population fits into this category. Finally, we have low-income countries. These countries are mostly poor, rural economies. They're agrarian with some industry. About 36% of the population will live in cities, but most live in villages and farms. Hunger, disease, and unsafe housing shape the lives of the world's poorest people. About 48 countries fit into the low-income category, and this is about 13% of the Earth's population. When we put this all together and look at a map, this is what we find. The high-income countries on this map are indicated in the dark green. The middle-income countries are indicated by the lighter color green, and the brown color indicates the low-income countries. And please take a look that the majority of the low-income countries on the planet come from Africa, and Africa is indeed the poorest of all of our continents. Let's turn our attention to theories of global stratification. There are two primary theories for the unequal distribution of the world's wealth and power: modernization theory and dependency theory. We'll start with modernization theory, which is a model of economic and social development that explains global inequality in terms of technological and cultural differences between nations. Until the last few centuries, the entire world has been poor. Affluence became possible in the late Middle Ages because of world exploration and trade and the Industrial Revolution in the late 1700s and early 1800s. Not every society wants to adopt new technologies because of traditions. Some of these new technologies are seen as a threat to their families, customs, and religious beliefs. And then we have dependency theory, which is also often called imperialism and colonialism. And this is a model of economic and social development that explains global inequality in terms of the historical exploitations of poor nations by rich ones. Rich nations for centuries have systematically impoverished low-income countries and made them dependent on the rich ones. The prosperity of the most developed countries came largely at the expense of less developed ones. For example, if you look at the map on your screen, you will see that Europeans took control of most of the African continent from the 1500s to the 1960s. Now we can take a look at world poverty. Most people around the world live on incomes of just a few $100s a year. And if you look at what's on your screen, we can see the three worlds of development and their level of population and how much income they share. So global poverty is the relative share of income and population by level of economic development. So if we were to take a look at the high income countries, we would see that they only have about 28% of the population, yet have 62% of the world's income. Middle income countries have 58% of the world's population, but only has 36% of the income, whereas the poorest countries, the low income countries, have about 14% of the world's population, yet only has about 2% of the entire world's income. What are some of the reasons for global poverty? Technology. About 25% of people in low-income countries farm the land using human, muscle, or animal power due to limited energy sources. Population growth. The poorest countries have the world's highest birth rates. Cultural traditions. Poor societies are usually traditional, resisting change even if it promises a better life. Social stratification. Social inequality is greater in agricultural societies than industrial societies. Gender inequality. Stifling more than 50% of the population due to traditional gender roles such as having lots of children and not working outside of the home. Global power relationships. Though most former colonized countries have been granted sovereignty, they still are highly controlled. And the issue of global poverty, unfortunately, continues with tools such as neocolonialism, which refers to a new form of global power relationships that involves not direct political control, but economic exploitations by multinational corporations. Thank you so much for joining me on this venture into social stratification, worlds of development, theories, and poverty. And I hope to see you back soon. Bye.